FDA director says pentobarbital in pet food may be a bigger problem than we thought. Welcome back to Off-Label Veterinary News, your source for commentary on animals, medicine, and practice life. If this is your first time, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so we can reach as many veterinary professionals as possible. Let's jump in to a story that's probably scaring your clients right now. How big a problem is pentobarbital in pet food? Last week in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri, when most of the East Coast was fleeing from Hurricane Florence, the annual Feed and Pet Food Joint Conference was being held. This year, among the esteemed pet food speakers was the director of the Centers for Veterinary Medicine for the FDA, Dr. Stephen Solomon. Now, Dr. Solomon was appointed to this position a couple of years ago, so he's still relatively new in this position, but he's already overseen some pretty horrific recalls, including the massive pentobarbital recall earlier this year. Now, this is one of those industry type of meetings where they talk about upcoming legislation, upcoming food and commodity issues, but what Dr. Solomon said during his keynote presentation caught the attention of many of us who watch pet food closely. I was surprised earlier this year when pentobarbital came back as an issue, and came back in full force. Pentobarbital simply should not be found in pet food. The American public, especially pet owners, demand this of us as regulators. They deserve to know the comforting fact that their animal's food does not contain a substance that is intentionally used to euthanize animals. And of course, he is correct. We don't expect to see pentobarbital show up in pet food in any way, shape, or form. Yet this March, that's exactly what happened once again when we believe that contaminated horse meat wound up in pet food. Many of us who watch the pet food industry closely always believed that there was only a handful of bad companies that were responsible for these kind of acts. But Dr. Solomon had a different take. Most of us probably think that pentobarbital contamination comes from a few bad actors. New evidence is showing it may be a much more pervasive problem in the animal food supply than originally thought. Let's rewind that tape just a little bit. The director for the Centers for Veterinary Medicine for the US FDA just said that pentobarbital contamination in pet food is not limited to just a few companies, but may be a more widespread problem than we ever believed. Now, Dr. Solomon pointed out that he believes that rendered meats are largely responsible for this contamination. And of course, the March recall is linked to contaminated horse meat. But regardless, the American public deserves to feed their pets pentobarbital-free pet food at minimum. Dr. Solomon pointed out that the FDA is working hard on this problem. The latest draft of hazard analysis and risk preventive controls for food for animals now contains advice on dealing with the issue of pentobarbital and euthanized animals. The sad truth of this latest draft guidance is that it simply states don't use animals euthanized with pentobarbital, which we kind of already knew. I appreciate what Dr. Solomon and his team at FDA CBM are doing to protect pet food in the United States. But I want to caution everyone that this is a difficult problem to control as long as we rely heavily on rendered meats for our animal protein sources. And that's why people like me and others are actively searching for non-meat, non-animal origin proteins to completely alleviate the risk of pentobarbital ever winding up in pet food. I mean, we live in an age of advanced biotechnology where pet food should also reap some of the benefits of the safety and advances in science that create better, safer, healthier pet foods in the future. And so, of course, myself at Wild Earth and others, we are working actively on this because at the end of the day, I would rather feed my animals proteins other than a rendered, slaughtered, scavenged animal carcass. What do you think, off-labelers, about Dr. Solomon's statements about pentobarbital in pet foods? Do you think we're doing a good enough job and we should just sort of sweep this one under the rug? Or should we continue to demand more transparency and better protections for the pets that we serve? I want to hear from you. Well, that's it for another edition of Off-Label Veterinary News. If you like content like this, do me a big favor, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and share with a colleague. Our goal here is to raise awareness about the topics that your clients, my clients are talking about, and how we can be a better profession. Until next time, keep living that off-label life. Bye.